Isn't that a marvelous reading? When James sent it to me, I just loved it. And wrote a teeny little bit shorter of a sermon just to accommodate the length of the reading. We're a good team. I also want to thank our musicians. So far, the music has taken me as I listen to a deep place, which I like when I'm leading worship. Thank you. And I need to tell everybody that this really feels good to be here. I've not spoken from this pulpit since pre-pandemic times. And if you at home watching don't see me looking at you enough, I'm looking at you now, it's because pre-pandemic times we didn't need the hybrid worship. But now that we have it, it's actually one of the few good things that have come out of the pandemic, hybrid worship, that is. First Unitarian of Wilmington is the church where my spouse Giovanni and I first encountered our Unitarian Universalists, or for visitors we say UU religion, a covenantal religion, which quickly became our ever-deepening and lifelong faith. As members know and visitors might not, our current covenant includes the principles, purposes, and sources of our Unitarian Universalist Association of Churches. They are found in Article 2 of our UUA bylaws. We express our value of religious pluralism explicitly with our sources of inspiration, and implicitly with the words that end Article 2. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. The new proposal to replace our Article 2 explicitly states our interconnected core values with specific call to action covenants for each. These core values are interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. All core values are rooted in love, the force of life holding our religious communities together. My focus this morning is our pluralism rooted in love. That gives rise to pragmatic pluralism as well. Pluralism rooted in love is a vision that acknowledges and respects the multitude of identities, beliefs, cultures, and perspectives that exist in the world, and seeks to build relationships and communities based on empathy, understanding, and works as a force that transcends boundaries and brings people together. Love inspires us to see beyond our differences, for love is not limited to romantic relationships. It encompasses a broader sense of interconnectedness and solidarity with all members of the human family. Universal love, if you will. Moreover, pluralism rooted in love recognizes that ignorance and fear are often at the root of division and conflict, and that knowledge and understanding can foster empathy and compassion. It promotes education that is inclusive, diverse, and respectful of different perspectives, and encourages lifelong learning as a means to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. If you want, you could sit up front instead of twisting your neck. My passion for pluralism rooted in love began with my early life experiences. For instance, the time I was rolling on the ground in a fight with a girl outside of my church who called me a greasy guinea. And then there was the day when I, a 14-year-old with a deep tan and ocean-frizzed hair, was thrown out of a bakery in Wildwood, New Jersey, as the owner yelled, "Get out of here, you dirty little..." He used the N-word. I surely became what today we call woke at that moment. Diana Eck, founder of the Harvard Pluralism Project, is author of a book that was published in 2001, and then a revision in 2002 following the 9/11 attack. Do you remember how we all sang "We Would Be One" the Sunday after that attack? Her book explores diversity and pluralism in the early 21st century. The title of this book is pretty much the book's summary. The title? A New Religious America. How a Christian country, and she has the quotes, has become the world's most religiously diverse nation. In it, Eck describes the transformation of America's religious landscape and explores the implications of this new religious reality of America today. She wrote that the Immigration Act of 1965 eliminated the quotas linking immigration to national origins. Since then, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Zoroastrians, and new varieties of Jews and Catholics have arrived from every part of the globe, radically altering the religious landscape of the United States. According to Eck, how Americans of all faiths and beliefs engage with one another in such abundance of diversity is one of our essential questions. Perhaps the most important challenge facing contemporary American society. Current research polls indicate that protecting our democracy is right at the top of voters' minds right now, along with the economy for the 2024 presidential election. In A New Religious America, Eck wrote that phrases like "celebrate diversity" and "diversity is our strength" misunderstand the meaning of diversity. Undeservedly, now let me say that again, undeservedly investing it with a positive meaning. She clarified that diversity is a neutral term with a range of possible consequences, everything possible from conflict to cooperation. It is only when diversity is proactively engaged towards positive ends that it will be transformed into pluralism. So, in other words, pluralism is diversity working for positive ends. In the early Catholic American, Italian American immigrant community from which I emerged, family was central. It was our most important and primary value, even more important than church. It was essential to me that if or when Giovanni and I found and joined a church for ourselves after we had our children, that it would be one that was welcoming to my extended family and to his, should they choose to visit. I was rooted in a familial love, and that love and some of my early experiences, such as worried that I've described, did not make it easy for me to trust this. So much, in my mind, of the other Christian religions had been kind of established over and against the Catholics. Now, this is all history, but I was young-er. Anyway, these experiences and my love generated my passion for pluralism, and it led to my embracing our universalist roots of love. Now, in my earlier life, the distinction between diversity and pluralism really wasn't clear. But I had created an analogy about a mother-father God who had birthed an earth-sized dysfunctional family. Our job was to become healthy. Following our principles while simultaneously living out our pluralism was my path to health and led me to the work of ordained ministry. Over the years, I frequently preached and taught pluralism as a value, that pluralism was a central path to human freedom and to becoming a better human being. Unfortunately, I didn't emphasize that we were required to practice pluralism actively in order to achieve such an outcome. Indeed, I describe pluralistic as something we were, rather than pluralism as something we needed to do. So if we want to practice pluralism, which it's necessary in our circumstances, especially in the United States, how do we do it? How do we practice pluralism rooted in love? Well, it's first and very important to acknowledge that true pluralism is a goal, not a state of being. Simply throwing people with diverse ideologies together does not necessarily lead to good relationships, wrote board chair of the Wyoming Interfaith Network, Carl Michael, in a weekly online newsletter. Mahatma Gandhi, the great prophet of India, said that we will never all think alike, and we shall always see truth in fragment and from different angles of vision. Now, I infer from Gandhi's life and work that practitioners of pluralism need a few common principles of practice. Nonviolence, violence was definitely one for Gandhi and his followers, but we need principles of practice in order for positive relationships to occur. And I would say nonviolence is probably at the minimum. For me, straighten this out. To practice pluralism is to establish these common principles, such as mutually acceptable approach to not an occasional dialogue, but deep dialogue, where one really gets to know the other, learns who the other is, in which one feels safe to articulate one's deepest thoughts. One of my core principles for this kind of dialogue that practices pluralism is the importance of understanding our separate realities. Richard Carlson, in his book, you might remember it, I love the title, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff, explains it well. And I quote him, "If you have traveled to foreign countries or seen depictions of them in movies, you are aware of vast differences among cultures. The principle of separate realities says that the differences among individuals is every bit as vast. Just as we wouldn't expect people of different cultures to see or do things as we could or do. In fact, we'd be disappointed if they did. This principle tells us that the individual differences in our ways of seeing the world prohibit this as well. It's not a matter of merely tolerating differences or putting up with them. I put that in. But of truly understanding and honoring the fact that it literally cannot be any other way. Carlson concludes, I have seen an understanding of this principle change lives. It can virtually eliminate quarrels. When we expect to see things differently, when we take it as a given that others will do things differently and react differently to the same stimuli, the passion we have for ourselves and for others rises dramatically. The moment we expect otherwise, the potential for conflict exists. That's the end of the quote. Understanding the principle of separate realities and practicing pluralism rooted in love requires a mindset of curiosity, humility, and empathy. One must step outside of our comfort zones, engage in meaningful conversations with others. You could do that with ourselves too, don't you think? And strive to understand and learn from the experiences and perspectives of others. When practiced with love, respect, and knowledge, pluralism does not fragment a society, it forms a bond, a moral glue that makes the group stronger as we live our principles, and stronger in resisting the backlash of attacks, as well as stronger in extending the hand of assistance and comfort to those in need. Pluralism, rooted in love, embraces the idea of Ubuntu, a concept from African philosophy that emphasizes the interconnectedness and interdependence of all humanity. Ubuntu recognizes that we are all in this together. In his last Christmas Eve service before his assassination, our great American prophet, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., preached a sermon on the intrinsic interconnectedness of existence itself. His words, he had such a beautiful, booming voice, and they boomed out with, "We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality." Just 2 weeks ago, members of this congregation, and I was one of them, had an opportunity to participate in an interconnected dialogue as we got to know each other's thoughts on the proposed changes to our principles, sources, and purposes. It was a dialogue, I thought, that respected our individual separate realities. And I'm looking out and I see others like myself who were there. Its basis on the proposed changes, which will not only transform our principles, as I've been stating, into a series of core values rooted in love, it will ask us to make specific covenants to transform our core values into living expressions of our Unitarian Universalist faith. This interconnected dialogue process is another way of practicing pluralism rooted in love. So now, as we go forward together as religious people, let us learn these processes better in the safety of our church, and let us take them outside the church walls, especially in engagement with people and communities who are different from ourselves. As Carl Carmichael of the Wisconsin Interfaith Network counsels, it's not enough for us to simply be a diverse group of faith communities that have somehow come together to form an association. We must learn that we have to learn each other's faith beliefs. There's that resistance again. Resist the tendency to argue the rights or wrongs of some other person's beliefs, and learn to come together on common goals. For positive relationships to emerge, certain conditions are needed. Equal status among the various partners and parties, cooperation between the groups, and common goals. Pluralism, then, is the engagement of diversity toward these positive ends. Here Carmichael's quote ends. And my hope begins anew. For pluralism rooted in love can positively change the world. May we all practice and preach it, every one of us. May it be so. Amen. Shalom, blessed be. Namaste. May the light of the divine in each bless the world.